Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Christian Karasevich.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing news talk show. This is episode 311 with myself, Sarah Monroe, and this week's guest, Judi Fox. We're going to be talking about LinkedIn, and I know we've talked a lot about LinkedIn over the past, I guess I could say month, because I think just about every topic has focused on LinkedIn. And here's the thing. LinkedIn is a place to drive business. It's a great platform for business, whereas a lot of other platforms, a lot of times they have business components, but you've got to remember it depends on where your audience is at. You want to make sure, if you're tapping into social media, that you're fishing in the right pond, that you're fishing where your audience is going to spend the most time at, and then adapting your content, your wording, things like that. We're going to talk more about that later. But today we're going to be talking about LinkedIn event management tools. We know that a lot of people have gotten into running events, and I think things are kind of starting to really pick back up, obviously going into the fall and into the winter. And so you want to be able to make it easy to run your events. And LinkedIn's got a great tool to help you do this. So I'm going to go and bring on Sarah, and we're going to kick things off. So Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about our guest for this week?
Yes. It's perfect timing with all of this LinkedIn news. It's actually perfect timing that we're talking to Judi Fox. I like to think LinkedIn, it's in the States anyway, North America, it's back to school time. I think it's sort of back to school time when it comes to business basics and also building out that lead generation. We're coming up on the holidays. There's a lot of things happening, and it's great that LinkedIn is actually announcing a lot of new things to help us with things that we know that are here to stay. We know that virtual events, hybrid events are here to stay. And so LinkedIn is rolling out a lot of good stuff for us. So let's bring on someone who calls herself a LinkedIn accelerator. She's also a business coach, a video strategist. It's Judi Fox, #FoxRocks.
Fantastic. So Judi, thanks for joining us.
Excited to be here.
Yeah.
So let's hit the ground running. I'm excited. I think events and a lot of the tools on LinkedIn are not being utilized 100% the way they could be, or people just need to know they exist.
Definitely. Yeah. And I got to say, I like the fact that even though it's LinkedIn, a lot of people always associate it still with that whole digital Rolodex thing, which is where I put my resume, but you can get a lot of value out of it if you're targeting the right customers.
Yeah, LinkedIn is not 2005. It is 2021, and we have the ability to upload video, do polls, and all kinds of features on LinkedIn. It's not just for somebody who has 1 million followers. It's for everybody. At 0 followers, you can create content for LinkedIn and grow really, really big. It's social media now.
Exactly. So Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's kick things off. Where do we want to start?
Well, let's start with how LinkedIn is actually adding some automation tools. So they announced that they're now working with an approved partner. Remember, we spoke a lot about how LinkedIn is very tight in who they allow. These third-party apps are allowed into working with the platform. So they're working with Zapier to apply some automation tools to their LinkedIn lead generation forms. So let's take a step back. As Judi mentioned, there's a lot of pieces of LinkedIn that people may not know about or understand, or may not be using to its fullest potential. So LinkedIn lead forms, we've got a quick screenshot just from the LinkedIn blog about what a lead gen form is. So this should look familiar to anybody who has built a form, right? Simple fields. It's actually a pretty clean interface. If anybody has worked in any kind of form builder, it's actually a pretty simple form. They do advise keep it simple, keep your offering simple. If it's a webinar or a white paper, whatever it is that you're offering and you're asking information for for your followers or audience. Keep it simple. Don't ask for a ton of information right out of the gate. You're just getting to know someone, right? Think of it like dating. You want to introduce yourself and have them introduce yourself to you. And then it has a next step where they get a thank you message, a thank you screen. And then this automation, here's where it comes in. This is the next step. So once you collect this information, it does go into a lead gen dashboard in your LinkedIn management tools. And what it now does with this integration with Zapier is all of that information can be pushed off to lots of third-party apps. So that means it can be HubSpot, Salesforce CRMs, a simple Google Sheet. You may still be on Google Sheets. That's fine. It can also push off to MailChimp. It can push off to a payment system with PayPal or Stripe. It can also, this is the one that I like the most, actually, is that this lead gen form can then push off to create a registration record for this person in Zoom or Hopin. And I think it's got Cisco in there too. It can also connect with active campaigns. So basically the whole menu of items that Zapier offers as integrations, this is now available for the LinkedIn lead gen apps. So this is going to create a huge time saver for anybody who is managing events. And you can it all starts with a LinkedIn lead gen form.
So I gotta say, I mean, one thing you mentioned, I think is really important is the idea behind what do you ask people on these forms?
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned, keeping it simple, don't make it complicated. Judi, do you think that is this an area where a lot of businesses struggle, like knowing what to kind of put on those forms?
100,000%. I think number one, the options feel endless with our language and what we could literally say on these forms. And I know with every business, you kind of want people to do a lot of things. At the end of the day, you want them to just buy what you're offering and join your company, join your mission, whatever you're offering. You obviously want them to get there. It's creating that path to get them there. And this lead gen form is a perfect, amazing part of that path. But it's moving somebody just one more step on the path, not always assuming everyone's going to close and purchase right that minute.
Yeah.
So I would say some great options to drive traffic is the call to action could just be follow and join our conversation. Use hashtag social chatter, use hashtag Fox Rocks. It's almost like you could have one step forward from that event to get more visibility for your next event. So right in this area, you could probably send people to follow your company page or join the conversation on social media instead of trying to constantly close everybody. The closing could just be coming to the next one, getting them to come again and again and again. So the other one is like a Calendly, book a call, because people are willing to get on a call a lot of times after they've spent time at a webinar with you. And I'm trying to think of the other one, download this resource to follow along with this webinar that we're offering you today. People love that. It makes them feel like, oh, wow, I get like a worksheet with the webinar.
Yeah.
Right.
Perfect. A checklist. So.
And Judi, every platform has a different etiquette to it or a different language. And we spoke about this a little bit earlier before the show, and that there are some phrases that LinkedIn users prefer more, or you get that click through with different language. So what would you say are those top keywords, calls to action to use?
Yes. So there are what we call higher converting words specifically for LinkedIn. So studied by companies out there. I've done the research. So the words are just an example. The words can be get. People love to get something.
Okay.
Very direct words. Join. We love to be joining something. That's a good energy. Join the conversation. Even just literally starting with the word download. It's the action and the verb we're about to do. So the opposite is avoid the words free. If it's free, it's kind of an afterthought. It's a parentheses on the end. It is free. But it's an afterthought on LinkedIn. It's almost like, well, that's nice. It's free, but it's not the thing that gets us to do something on LinkedIn. A lot of people kind of feel good assuming it's paid, and then they'll go, oh, wow, it's free. Great. And then I think the other word is LinkedIn has a feeling of, I'm already smart. I'm already on LinkedIn. I want to position myself as an expert. Many people want to be experts on there in their field, in their study. So they really steer away from the word help. A lot of times they prefer other words that come from support or increase or gain. What are they going to get a result from attending this webinar with an action verb instead of this webinar is going to help you? Replace help with this webinar is going to increase your business. Okay. Give it a verb.
Right.
There you go.
That's awesome. I think what you're starting to say is to think like the business, have your business mindset in place and the action mindset in place. That LinkedIn is a lot of people who want to do something and get things done, right? I'm not going to say type A, because type A, personalities can be a little culturally charged, right? But, we get things done. And it's not the scroll. It's not the Instagram scroll. It's not the Facebook, let's see what's doing here and there and jumping into stories or whatever else. LinkedIn is for getting things done. And
I love that.
Yeah.
Good tagline, by the way.
Man,
it's a great tagline.
Sarah's LinkedIn, getting things done.
Getting things done.
But you're 100,000% correct. The mindset is why the LinkedIn high converting words are powerful to think about. So you do have to switch your language from coming over from an Instagram world, a Facebook world, and maybe slightly casual language to let's hit the ground running. Let's get some results. This webinar is going to pop off and it's going to actually get you something.
Yeah.
So again, the word help is a nice word. It's not a negative word. It just isn't the closing energy that people love on LinkedIn. That feeling of, oh, I'm going to get something if I attend this webinar.
Right.
And you also have to look at like what that offer is, and you have to look at the customer as well. So like, for example, when we're talking business, so like, if like having worked in the B2B space, if you're targeting the B2B audience, your audience is already familiar with what those processes look like, i.e., you're a very large corporation, you send out a landing page, the person fills out a form, they're going to either go to a video or they're going to go to a download, or they're going to get contact. At that point, they're going to get contacted by a salesperson. And so that's very different versus like, hey, I'm trying to reach, the mom and pop shop, for example. They're not going to they're going to maybe do some of that stuff, but they're not used to like that flow. So I got to do it closer. They're not going to do that flow. They know. So you kind of have to make sure you adapt properly for the LinkedIn platform. Right. And yeah, go ahead. Sarah, go ahead.
And I was going to jump in and say that what's great about the LinkedIn with what we're talking about with this announcement this week is that it's now moving these forms where people are, right? You want people to take action where they are and not necessarily have to jump off things, right? Yeah. So take action where they are. And then it's going to move into all of your other business systems, right? It's going to move into all of those other properties that you own. Like you own your MailChimp list. You own your Salesforce database. You own your Zoom account, right? Yeah. So all of this data, it's making it easier to use the tools that are on these social media networks that can then go to the tools that you're actually using to run your business and can actually follow up. You can, by automatically creating a Salesforce record, come on, you can put in all of the other follow-up tools and tasks that go into that and assign it out to your team. So, and this doesn't have to be for big businesses either. Right. These are small businesses. Yeah. And I think as we're looking through this tool this week, Zapier can be expensive. Some of they're called Zaps. Some of them can be pricey, but when you think about the time savings on the other end and how you can build this system together with everything else that you're doing, it's a huge time saver and a huge money saver too.
It's all about working smarter, not harder as well. I mean, and I love the example you just gave, Sarah. Like this is not, it's not something that, oh, it's exclusive to a business. Like for example, with this whole LinkedIn event management tool feature, it's the fact that like you're, in a way, you're delegating the work to somebody else, or in this case, you're delegating it to Zapier to say, when something happens on this LinkedIn lead gen form, I want to pull it into these programs. And then, if you kind of walk through the scenario, like you walk through the typical user scenario, at least maybe the person just starting in social media, for example, what they're going to do is they're going to have somebody email them. They're going to have them, maybe they're going to have them send information through, a Facebook message or things like that. The information's all over the place. And where this is super helpful now is that this is that digital plumbing in the back end. That basically it's saying, okay, so if somebody fills out this form, take all that information that's there, that's bottled up. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to be working. What is it? Is it on it's working in your business, right? So like to the point where you're working so much in your business that you're not able to actually work on your business and grow your business because you're doing all these little things that you really don't need to be spending the time doing. Because I mean, for example, who wants to sit there and like collect the information from a form and then go input it into a Google Sheet, for example, or a Salesforce? It's important to get the information, but I think people have a lot more valuable things they can do with their time. Anything else you want to add on this, Judi?
With LinkedIn events, just like you said, you could fill up an event with 1,000 people and speak with 1,000 people at that event and then continue the conversation just like you're saying. So this is really powerful because your event on LinkedIn, people can hit the share button, people can invite other people. The ability for that event to get spread really, really wide on LinkedIn. And as long as somebody registers, even if they don't attend, you can then turn around and say, here's the replay and send it out to those specific people who didn't make the live event, which is totally fine. Here's the replay.
Right. And that leads into what else we're talking about today too, is just LinkedIn events in general. And which also applies to all the other events that we do that may not be on LinkedIn. I think all of us on the show today, and I'm sure if we ask our audience to raise their hands and chime in about how much we have had to duct tape together multiple platforms and multiple CRMs to track people. The event is the first step of the relationship building. And then I'm working in the most obscure ticketing platform right now that connects to an even more obscure nonprofit database. And so we have to pull people from that, double check with the payment system, then move them into Zoom registrations, and then move them into Constant Contact, right? So it is a 5-step process right now to manage this event. And LinkedIn, what I love about this is that LinkedIn's really recognizing that we're all tired of this and these events aren't going away.
Online events are here to stay. We've overcome the resistance to business always has to be done in person.
Yep.
We've learned that it doesn't all have to be done in person. We can build trust and we can build familiarity on video and connecting live. You cannot edit what I'm about to say right now, so I could say anything. But that is the power of live and social media and building trust. So we all are pro events because they're powerful. And I love your phrase. Now we just have to work on the plumbing behind the wall that the attendees don't always see, and that we want it to run as smooth as possible so there's no clogs in the pipes. That was a great analogy.
and here's the thing. I mean, and this is the great thing. Like Sarah, you mentioned this about Zapier, for example, and there's a cost there. And you and I were talking about this also beforehand. And, as we're kind of reviewing the notes and things like that for the show. And, you mentioned that like Zapier has there's a slight cost, but it's a cost of doing business. And you and I were talking about it from the perspective of like, when you want to do some of these automation processes, So for example, think about like this. If you're a business owner, this is less you have to think about because you have the digital plumbing set up.
Mhm.
So it's removing that barrier to, hey, I'm collecting the forms, and then I got to input all the information. And then I got to, if I have an assistant, great. But chances are most people don't. So then I have to do all that other stuff to finally get to the next point. However, this is going to help significantly with that. And so like when we look at Zapier and we look at the cost, it's not expensive, but it adds up if
Mhm.
you're bringing in the wrong types of leads, basically. So, it's a premium add-on for Zapier. Zapier is, I think, free all the way up to, I think it's up to, or there's a small amount that are free. And then if you want the advanced ones or the pro ones, they do cost a little bit more. It's not terribly expensive for Zapier, but you have to remember everything you're doing, the actions are zaps. And so those are what you're paying for. And so this is where Judi, we put LinkedIn in focus here as a business platform. If you're getting the B2B, if you're in the B2B space, you're working with B2B companies, they're not going to bat an eyelash at the price for the most part. But if you're working with the small mom and pop B2C, it's going to seem really expensive, for example. And so you want to make sure that you're generating the right kinds of leads, getting them into your funnel, and then putting, and then in this case, putting them into Zapier. And Zapier is actually going to help you make more money as a business because it's going to help make it easier to do things.
Right. And what's the cost of hiring someone to do that instead of having the automation do it? And also, what's the cost? This is something no one ever thinks about. What's the cost of the distraction? What is the cost of the distraction of you having to check this list and that list and move people here and there and update this database? And that distracts you from actually creating the good content. What am I going to say to that client once I get them on the phone? What am I going to say in the prospect communications flow to them? What am I going to say at the event? And how can I make it even better? Because I'm not thinking about all of these little teeny tiny details that go into every single event. Whether it's just a simple live, even we say a simple live event, right? There is some prep to it, and being in the right headspace is important.
And that's all. I love the point you just made about the cost of that distraction, and the fact also that getting yourself in the right headspace is super important, because of the fact that if I'm over there, if I'm so busy working in my business, it doesn't give me the time to focus on where I'm really going to make the money. You're not making the money doing essentially the grunt work yourself, right? So no, I love that point. So, Judi, is there anything else you want to add on this?
I want to add that when you launch an event on LinkedIn, you do get a chance to invite and search for your connections to say, I want to only invite marketing professionals. I want to blast this out to engineers, and whoever's in your audience, you can kick off that event by inviting the right audience. And I think that's really a powerful tool on LinkedIn, because just like you were saying, if you're using a tool that does cost money, or even just paying for somebody to process these people, you don't want to process 1,000 people who are the wrong prospect or the wrong lead. So.
Right. And that's a perfect lead into another part of these LinkedIn announcements. And that is that there is going to be some paid ticketing as part of this, and also notifications. So you can notify the people who are registered about the event, but then you can also create these matched audiences so that you are getting to a subset of people that you want to reach, in addition to the people who've already signed up. So there's a lot packed into this announcement from LinkedIn this week. And there's going to be even more, but wait, it's going to get better.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
This is a good time when you use but wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. So on Monday, I just found this out before we went live today. On Monday, October 4th, at 10 a.m. Pacific time, they are going to talk about all of this new event tools. They're actually going to have a launch event. And so they've been teasing all summer that they're going to change how video lives on their platform, whether that's live or uploaded, record, whatever it might be. Today is the last day of stories, right? So, and they acquired Jump Rope. We've been talking about this all summer and fall about how they created this tool. They've acquired this tool called Jump Rope. So you can actually stitch together a story like video. So Monday, we're going to find out what all of these new tools, the paid ticketing that they're putting together. They've also announced that their live events, you can now go live on LinkedIn if you have as little as 150 followers. That's profile or page.
Nice.
So there's lots of little tidbits that they have been putting out there, all these little breadcrumbs that are leading up apparently to Monday.
Monday.
So we'll have to wait till Monday for all of that. Yeah, but so much. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of the only 150 followers or connections to be able to be evaluated for LinkedIn Live access. Again, because you have either people they just go all in and get too many followers and they're not the right people, or they, and so I like the fact that they're setting a bit of a threshold. Again, I'm glad, it's great that they have features, but you also have to, you don't want to just give it to everyone, because then it waters down the platform if everyone can do, LinkedIn Live video, for example. So
Right. And since you brought that up, that is one of our topics today, Christian, and that is there are fewer followers are required. But the other part of that announcement is that you need to be sharing original content. So, not just resharing or regurgitating other people's stuff. They want to reward people with LinkedIn Live, people who are giving the platform good content and they're being good community members on LinkedIn. You also have to have a history, this is a quote from them, a history of abiding by their standards, their terms of use and community standards. So if your account's been flagged, you may likely not get LinkedIn Live right away. It's also not available in China. So basically, they're opening up LinkedIn Live to reward people who are building their presence. And there's a lot of people out there who haven't really built up their following on LinkedIn, as Judi said earlier, too, is a lot of people just use it as a Rolodex, or what did you say? It's 2005. This is not your 2005 LinkedIn anymore, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's great news. I know that a lot of people, Christian, you've heard a lot of people. We have some guests on our show who ask, hey, how do you get LinkedIn Live? I see that you're on LinkedIn Live, and I'd really like to get that. So that's also part of their announcements. I'm sure they're going to say more on Monday, but open it up to you two if there's anything you want to add about this becoming more accessible to folks.
I think the one thing I would add is that you need to follow the rules on the platform. And that doesn't mean I'm going to follow them after I get started. It means you need to follow them to begin with. And the reason is because there are long-term repercussions of not following those rules. So for example, if LinkedIn says, hey, I'll give you an example here. We're talking about LinkedIn Live access. One of the things that LinkedIn does not want you to do with LinkedIn Live, for example, if you're doing pre-recorded videos and you're using there's third-party services that could connect into this. If you're doing pre-recorded videos and you're publishing them as a live stream, for example, every platform has different rules on this. So when you get access to LinkedIn, make sure you know what those rules are before you actually start streaming to the platform. Because again, it comes back to the experience. They don't want people pre-recording a video and pushing it out like this as a live video on the platform. It says so in their guidelines. It does not say what's going to happen to you, but you have to think about, if LinkedIn doesn't like that, they can easily just say, hey, you know what, we're going to, flag your account. And then now that impacts everything that you potentially do in the future that LinkedIn wants to add. Right. Judi, is there anything else you want to add?
I would add that a powerful action that I have given advice to people to get access to LinkedIn Live is a couple of tips. But one of my tips, just going off of what you just said, a great way to show that you understand LinkedIn Live or the rules is to go out and literally put hashtag LinkedIn Live or search for the LinkedIn Live product management team that works at LinkedIn and like and comment on their posts. Their entire role at LinkedIn is to promote this product, to make this work, to talk about it. And if you even just show a little bit of attention to the team members, what's happening with the platform, they're going to notice you. It's not, how do I say this? The other day, I wanted to network with all of the new LinkedIn creator teams that are out on the platform now that work for LinkedIn. So I just typed in LinkedIn creators, found a few of them. And once you find 2 or 3, you find all of them because they're all networking with each other. And I looked at their comments and they have like 18 comments on their last post. They're going to notice if you make a high quality comment. It's not that they're going to give you something. You don't automatically get something.
Right.
But high intention, low expectations, you're making yourself known. So when you do fill out that LinkedIn Live application, they can have a moment where they look through your activity and they see that you're a great contributor to the conversation about LinkedIn Live.
And I think the key point you're also driving home here is just the idea of networking. So like, don't just think like if you're using LinkedIn and you're just networking with your own like friends and the people in your network, you're going to stay in that small, circle, but go outside that comfort zone. It doesn't mean that just because they work at LinkedIn, for example, does not mean that they will not engage with you. They actually may look like initially it may just be like a like or something like that, or they may not respond to your comment, but just remember if they're doing their job, they're going to notice it, and then they may start connect the dots like, hey, we're seeing, Sarah, for example, she's really engaging on a lot of her content. They start to see your growth, and then they may want to reach out to you about other opportunities.
Yeah, that's how I got a hold of the LinkedIn events team. And I had a phone call with them because the events team saw how excited I was about LinkedIn events. And I made a video and they literally came into my comments saying, oh my gosh, I love how you used it. I love what you did here. So just as one more thing about events, you can hold the event and generate buzz and comments all the way down the news feed of the event. So it's not on the public news feed, it's in your event feed. And because they were able to see how much conversation I was having, I even had a comment from Dan Roth, who's like one of the senior editor VPs. And I, all the way up to the CEO, asked to check out what I was doing on LinkedIn. So you can get the attention of LinkedIn. They're excited if you're excited about the platform. So go out there and enjoy the platform, enjoy events, even if you're not trying to show people how to use them.
Yeah.
Just you looking like you are utilizing them, you might show up as their example this week on a live stream. You have no idea.
Exactly.
It's that user-generated content. There's no reason why LinkedIn can't use user-generated content the way the other platforms do, or help promote influencers. Now, we all know about the Instagram influencers, right? Why not apply the same principles on LinkedIn? We talk about it in networking and getting noticed by hiring managers at companies you want to work with or work for, or network with people in a new industry that you're trying to break into. This is a great way to do the same, but with the LinkedIn crew.
Definitely. And the last point I think I want to make on this is, just the idea of don't go into it with expectations you're going to get something out of it, or that you're just wanting, that you're over here like, waving like, hey, look at me, look at me. Like go into it with good intentions that you actually, that you're there to use the platform. You want to learn how to use it versus, hey, I want them to give me something. I want them to give me LinkedIn Live access. I want them to, invite me into the LinkedIn learning program, for example, or things like that. That's going to come when they start to see you doing things, taking action on the platform. So
right.
Speaking of next topics.
Next topic, we're going back to Clubhouse. We haven't talked about Clubhouse in a long time. We're actually going to talk a little, this is actually foreshadowing something we're going to talk about a little bit later too, is the whole audio space. But Clubhouse is adding a feature that you can basically flag down someone who is in a Clubhouse hallway. So I have to say, I got onto Clubhouse kind of early, about a year ago, and was starting to see the features. And I kind of fallen off Clubhouse, so I had to find out what is a hallway, right? But basically, it's giving you a chance to network within Clubhouse, so that as you see different users who are sort of looking around in that space, you can wave them down, literally wave them down with a little click of a button. So I think what Clubhouse is trying to do is to make the sea that is Clubhouse. Clubhouse is a big pool, and it can be hard to find people, especially if their profiles don't match the usernames that you know of them on other platforms, or if you're like me and you refuse to connect your contact list to any social media platform. You may not find people that you know or you want to find on the platform. So I have to say, I have been listening to some Clubhouse stuff. A lot of TEDx speakers are there. A lot of marketing experts that I like to follow are sticking with Clubhouse. And this might be a great way to get in front of them. As Judi said, the same way you do on LinkedIn, maybe this is a way you can get in front of someone within Clubhouse. So what do you think? It's been a while since it's been a minute, right? It's been a while since we talked about Clubhouse. What do you think, Christian and Judi?
I gotta say, yeah, go ahead, Judi. I'm going to turn it over to you. Like, I know you got into, I think you dabbled in some live audio on the Clubhouse platform. What do you think about Clubhouse?
I love it. I am a big fan of just audio only in general. I found a lot of success with it. I think that it's a matter of being consistent. I know we hear that word, but I've had a room for over, 40 weeks now that I've done a room every single week. Mm-hmm. So the consistency with that has turned into probably 50x my business at this point, which we talk about. That's 10x. This year, how do I say this? I credit audio only and the access to that as 50xing my business.
That's great.
That is a big number, just FYI. And it blows my mind that Clubhouse did that. But I will say the audio experience, if you dial in that next step, it's the same thing as running a webinar. It's just you're just audio experiencing a webinar, basically. Oh, a podcast. You're audio experiencing a live podcast, Twitter Spaces, and all the different places, Twitter Spaces. The new feature with the wave, I still haven't played around with it. Nobody's waved at me. I haven't waved at anyone. I find that it reminds me of like a Facebook poke.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't quite follow this wave yet, but I get the concept. I think it's to let somebody know you're on and you're willing to have a conversation, like you're available and if they wave back, they're available. And I think it's meant to put you in a room together that you can have a conversation. But I just ping people into a room and I'm like, talk to me.
So do you, so in terms of like that, like, so basically how are you, so if you're doing a video experience, like a webinar or a live video, are you just like having a normal conversation, just have that other channel open to Twitter Spaces or to Clubhouse in this case, or how are you kind of doing things?
When you say
like to make it a little more seamless, to make it a little more inviting versus like, oh, hey, I just have my mic open and people can listen in.
Oh, I definitely think number one, it's your title. What are you talking about? What are they going to get? And I think because I came from the LinkedIn, what are they going to get mindset?
Yeah.
That really supported how I thought about the titles and how you run a room. Okay. I also have my list and I've had this list for, 5 or 6 years now. I have my 5 ways I want people to feel when they interact with me on social media. So if you have that dialed in and you think about running a show on Clubhouse, they don't have to know they're entering into a show or an experience, but I have patterns.
Okay.
So a pattern might be there's always a funny moment. I always have like a funny business joke, or I close with a certain pattern, or I always make sure that if you've got a certain room title and you put an experience with it, there's a checklist for them to go grab that goes along with what you're going to cover in the room. So when you have an interactive experience, if you have I'm showing what I'm talking about right now on stage in my Instagram stories, or I just made a post and it's a slide deck and you can download it and grab it, or you can go to this website, go grab this link and you can download this checklist. That's what we're covering here today. The advice and the tips. The whole experience can be extremely powerful, just like a podcast is. The podcasts that get results are the ones that say, if you want the show notes that come with a summary of how to put this podcast into action, use the same energy on an audio only experience.
Right. And I got to say, one little quick tip that I use for, at least for my live shows, to drive them. For example, if somebody's doing the live show and then somebody else happens to be listening to the audio podcast, I always include like a short URL to that episode. So for example, we do it with this show. If it's like, hey, socialchefs.com/SC311. So that would get them to the episode when that gets created in the next few days. Or if it's like a podcast, I have a similar structure that I send them to. And I make sure to remind them like, hey, if you want to actually watch the video, go here. Or if you're watching the video and you want to check us out on the favorite podcasting platform, use this URL. So, but again, those are little steps. And this comes back to like that digital plumbing we talked about earlier about setting these little things up. Like this becomes part of your process, i.e. today we could be broadcasting to Twitter Spaces. And for example, I didn't have it in my run of show to set up Twitter Spaces, but again, it's making, like I could have even broadcast a Clubhouse, for example. So it's making.
We're on Clubhouse right now.
Are we actually? Because I should have actually had you. Okay.
We could have. Yeah, we definitely could have. So, but it is adding those different experiences because we can't be everything to everyone, right? But we can be in different places with the same content, just adapted to that place. So like Christian mentioned, a lot of people may not realize when they watch this video or if they're on with us live today, is that we often are on Twitter Spaces. And that Christian also produces an Alexa flash briefing for this show. Yeah. And so we make sure that we add these little nuggets throughout our show. We also try to explain some of the slides. So if someone is visually impaired and they can't see the visuals, we talk through what we're seeing on the screen. So all of these different pieces build on that relationship building with the potential or strengthen a relationship with a current client. So
definitely. Fantastic. Okay. So Sarah, are we going into our lightning round?
Let's go into lightning round. You know, we've been dancing around Twitter Spaces. Twitter actually had some announcements this week about improvements to Spaces. So they are allowing topics. This is for Android only. So when you're setting up your Twitter Space, you can pick up to 3 topics. They're only offering a list of 10. So you can pick 3 from the list of 10 that they have right now on topics. Again, probably something that they're testing to see how this is going to work. They are also testing recording. The first one that we've heard, the audio only space on the recording. So this could be really very much a game changer. I have to say, when I see Clubhouse notifications pop up, I just sort of say, oh, well, I guess I'll miss that one because there's no way to go back on it, right? They're also launching tips to all users. So you can add a tip if you enjoy the content that you're getting from a certain creator. You can give them a tip. And they're using pretty much all the standard tip platforms like Bandcamp and Cash App and Patreon. I haven't seen Buy Me a Coffee, which is something that we use here on Social Chefs, but it may be further down the list and I just didn't get there. But definitely something to check out, that tips are coming to Twitter. Another topic everybody's talking about, we're just going to mention it in our lightning round and put it in the blog post after the show, is that Instagram for Kids is taking a pause. A lot of people have said a lot about it. There's been a lot of research about mental health in minors with social media, and Instagram is basically pumping the brakes now and saying, okay, we need to think this through maybe a little bit more. And then finally, for those who aren't following YouTube Creator Insider, if you are using YouTube a lot, Creator Insider channel is amazing. We talked about it last week, I think, maybe the week before, about they spoke with the VP of engineering. They put out a lot of amazing content in these videos. And so they're talking this week about super chat, super stickers, and translation and comments, so that you can really open up to a more international audience with your comments being translated. It's mobile only right now, but they're hoping to get it onto desktop soon. So that's the lightning round of all the other news.
And we're going to put all of those in the blog post, by the way, as well. So we're not going to go into too much more detail on those. But again, there's always so much happening every single week, as you can see. I mean, I think we just went through like 8 to 9 topics. I mean, and they're pretty juicy topics. So that's the social media news for the week. What we want to do now, though, right, is we want to talk with our guests. We want to talk with Judi, because Judi is super knowledgeable. I know she's very high. She's highly in demand, so she's hard to get a lot of times. And so we want to make sure that we spend enough time with her. So Sarah, exactly. I know we talked about LinkedIn event management tools. I know we had some questions for Judi as well. And I know she was on like 214. So I did some calculations. I think that's like almost 2 years ago that we had you back on here.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah. So Sarah, what do we want to talk to Judi today about?
Sure. Well, Judi, we've sort of taken a step back with some of our questions, especially for guests that we haven't seen in a long time, is to take a step back and let's talk about the bigger picture, right, of some of the places where you have expertise. Christian and I think everybody watching knows the answer to this question, but let's ask it.
But you want to know if I know it.
I want to know your take. We want to hear your perspective on how LinkedIn can drive your business goals to get results.
I would say LinkedIn is an amazing playground for leadership. So when you think about these other places, you might say to yourself, they are built for influencers, or how do I get on LinkedIn and drive business and traffic? And the best thing I will say that LinkedIn has done is leveled up the features on the LinkedIn profile, because every content platform, Instagram, we can make content, YouTube, we can make content, all the different places we can make content. The power of the LinkedIn profile merged with the content you can make on LinkedIn gives us a great sales tool. It gives you recommendations, which are technically reviews for your business and your services. It gives you what I call social proof, who you're connected with, who you're networking with, what you're talking about, and the featured section on LinkedIn. It used to be called the media section. It's now called featured. It creates a fast, back-end, clickable link to jump right on your calendar, apply to work with you, fill out a Google form, and it looks beautiful, and it's very highlighted on LinkedIn now. I consider that a great sales tool. It's changed everything with a lot of businesses I've worked with. So, fantastic. What do you think?
I think it's great. I find that I'm not on LinkedIn a lot, and I know that I should be, and it's easy to miss the new tools, which is why it's been great that we've had so many people talking about LinkedIn this season too, is that there's a lot of places where you can tell your story, a lot of ways that you can tell your story in different ways using each of the tools. I have a fundraising background, and so in grant applications, they ask the same question in different ways. LinkedIn does the same thing. So answer it in different ways, because people may not scan all of your summary, or they may not scan all of a different position. But if you use the different tools, you can get that content there where people may just be browsing around and find it.
One thing I wanted to add that I think has changed on LinkedIn and the bigger picture of social media and being able to Google, if I'm going to hire somebody or work with a team, I'm probably talking to either somebody in sales, or I'm talking to somebody that I may work with, a direct connection that I'm going to work with at a business. I'm going to Google their name. I'm going to Google the company. I'm going to Google insert company and the word reviews. XYZ Zapier and then reviews. And the thing that actually will come up now is LinkedIn. LinkedIn will come up when you search for somebody's news. I had somebody the other day say, oh my gosh, I searched my name on Google and LinkedIn was one of the top 2 links. And I had no idea. So they're landing on my website and then my LinkedIn profile. And oh my gosh, I better level that up because it can be built to sell. That LinkedIn profile page can be a landing lead generation page.
And I want to add something real quick on that. Last week, we talked about LinkedIn long form articles on company pages. And here it's the same concept here. It's writing good quality content because here's the thing, LinkedIn actually, so unlike I think like Facebook, for example, or a lot of things are behind a paywall. A lot of things are gated basically, meaning you have to be logged in. LinkedIn still requires that, but they still let things show up in search. And so if you're like, you know what, hey, like I don't have a blog, start writing some articles on LinkedIn. Start, they don't have to be like long, complicated articles, but they help build up and I will say they help build up your resume. They help build up like, what are you actually good at, for example? And that can actually be stuff that gets featured, for example, that you feature in that section that Judi was talking about on your profile, for example, or you get certifications or, you get awards, things like that. That's all stuff that can go in those sections to help bolster your presence on LinkedIn.
Right. And I would ask Judi, oh, sorry, I'm interrupting. I was going to ask Judi what you thought of the LinkedIn long content.
Well, yeah, I was just going to add to that because I love it. And I would say one of my most successful pieces has been a LinkedIn article that lived on. So basically my advice to everybody is if you're posting and you create content on LinkedIn and you have a post take off, because I think a lot of us who spend any time on LinkedIn, we're like, oh my gosh, that one got a lot of reactions. It maybe reached 1,000 views where some of your other posts were hitting 100. I'm just giving some round numbers. It's hitting 10,000 views and your posts normally reach 1,000. Whatever your normal is, whatever's a bit above that, turn that into a bigger article because it can live on. So I did that myself. And that piece has now reached over 2 million people.
That's
a
great.
LinkedIn article. And so people are sleeping on that concept. So I took one of my most viral pieces that on LinkedIn in the news feed, it was gone. It's not in the news feed forever. It reached 500,000 people in the news feed. But now because I turned it into an article, articles are shareable on Facebook, Twitter. So it went viral on Twitter and it is Google searchable. And so because of the Google search, it continues to this day to generate eyeballs in business.
So I have a question real quick on that, by the way. So with the long form article feature, could I take that LinkedIn post that was done? So like it was in the news feed. I can obviously copy a link to that. Can I put that in the long form article?
Yes. If you make a video for the platform, you can insert that post and that video within that long form article. So yeah, you can directly link to it. So I did take screenshots at the time and that's how I put it in. But I owned the fact that this was originally a LinkedIn post. I'm just turning it into an article so it can live on.
That's great. And just some fast facts for LinkedIn. How long does a post live on the newsfeed?
I tell people, depending on how well the post is doing, I estimate it's anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. Yeah, I say that if a post is taking off, it can last up to a week almost if it's a viral piece. So I still am getting likes and comments from a piece I wrote that reached around 40,000 views and like 600 likes and comments recently. That post lasted about a week for me in the newsfeed where I kept generating visibility.
Nice.
Now, how long will it last as people go back in your post history on your profile? How long will that stay there?
That's the power of the featured section. So if you want to feature a successful post, which I think is a great thing to do, you can feature your content back 10 years if you want. You can, but that's the visibility from getting it on your profile so it can live on as a post. But what was the question? Like, how long does it get moved down?
Yeah, you know how you can go back and see, oh, I see Judi posted something 2 months ago. I see that she posted something 6 months ago. LinkedIn had been keeping it pretty short. I think it was like 30 days, maybe you could go back 3 months, but now it's much longer.
I've been able to scroll back to my first post, which is over 10 years ago. So
wow.
I was able to, I mean, I scrolled for a while. I might have been like watching Netflix or something and just scrolling. I think it took me like 30 minutes to scroll, but it's a cringy first post. I got like 5 comments on it, and I didn't even reply to anyone because I was like, oh, thanks. Like it's so funny, the mindset. I will tell you, it's so cringy that I actually opened it up like it was a letter, like a post. I wrote dear, and then I inserted my ideal customer that I wanted to talk to. Title of like dear management professional. Like what the hell was that? I wrote it like a letter.
You know, we all start from zero.
Yes.
So you got to start somewhere. And then the long form content, there's some controversy over whether you keep the long form content on your blog or do you share it on LinkedIn? Do you put it on both? Because Google doesn't crawl LinkedIn. Right?
What do you mean by Google? Google crawls the LinkedIn articles.
It crawls the LinkedIn articles, but it doesn't crawl it for duplicate content. So if I were to create a page, at least that's the most recent knowledge that I have on it. You know, I haven't checked it in the last 6 months, but I knew if I repurposed a blog post into a LinkedIn page, Google wouldn't tag me for duplicate content. It was on my website too.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I'm not an SEO expert. That's why I hire those people. The best thing that I know is, again, so I have companies that I work with that have blog and SEO content. And I know SEO experts I work with and all that kind of world. And I do tell them, and we as partnership take their content from their blogs and put it on LinkedIn to optimize it to be found. So from my perspective, we're doing it to go out to Facebook and Twitter too. So we get access to both those platforms. And I will tell you a tip for LinkedIn articles. Yes, we can optimize them for Google search, but I have found way more visibility and power as I write my LinkedIn article to think about how the social sharing for that article could work for Twitter or Facebook. And I notice a lot of people don't optimize that LinkedIn article to be shareable to those two sites. And hands down do that, because LinkedIn wants that content to go out there.
So, and I think one other thing I think that's also like super important when you're writing like articles on LinkedIn to then be able to use them across other platforms is the fact that like when somebody's creating a blog post, they're making it SEO friendly. They're not writing it actually to the customer that they're trying to target. They sort of are, but they're not directly relating it to the customer. Versus like if I go on LinkedIn, like chances are those long form articles are almost going to be like a diary or a journal entry or something. And there's a totally different way to kind of go about it, right? So I may want to write a how-to article, but I think that would actually work better if I'm, having like a frank conversation with the customer, for example, through that LinkedIn content, because then over on my social platform, let's say it's Twitter, I can easily say something like, I used to struggle with XYZ. I shared my thoughts on that topic here versus here's how to go about doing something. For example, like a tutorial or, 25 ways to generate more leads for your business. Like make it a little more relatable, I think, versus like, hey, here's a whole bunch of ideas I put together that don't really have that personal touch, I guess.
Yeah. And I think just like you close a blog post, you can have moments in your LinkedIn articles that literally say it's a tweetable tweet. But I think thinking outside of the LinkedIn platform is the power of LinkedIn articles.
That's awesome. I think there's still I still read some websites that allow you to tweet that one line, right? You've seen that, tweet this one line sort of highlighted. Yeah,
I've
making
seen
it easier for
that, and yeah, it's powerful for LinkedIn. Somebody I've seen use that successfully, and I know they had trackback links to see who clicked that tweetable
Yep.
moment, and they have it all linked back, is Gary Vaynerchuk. I mean, his team does that all the time. So
Mhm. Yep.
look at what somebody successful is doing on LinkedIn, because I, for example, got some of my ideas for that most viral LinkedIn article I did was from Gary Vaynerchuk. I mean,
Mhm.
there you go.
Well,
There you go.
and that leads us to like that our last question for you, and that's Sarah. This is where we want to talk about like accelerating growth, right?
Exactly. So let's distill it down. What are 3 things people can do right now, or what are the 3 top things that people can do to accelerate their growth on LinkedIn?
That the very first one I would say is commenting. A lot of people discount how powerful commenting is on LinkedIn. LinkedIn wants a conversation. They have said that over and over and over again. And the way that looks is, if you don't know where to comment, start with the LinkedIn news, because on the right-hand side, LinkedIn is telling you, and LinkedIn is actually generating eyeballs for those news stories. And so if you join that conversation, you may become a featured comment. And that is a powerful place to be. I've seen people grow their visibility by over 1,000% by commenting on the LinkedIn news. So step number 1, high quality comments. Step number 2, to accelerate your growth. If that conversation in the LinkedIn news was that powerful for LinkedIn and they wanted to have it, think about how to turn that high quality comment into a post for yourself. So turn your comments into your own content, because you're basically merging into what the platform wants to talk about. Instead of sitting around a conference room or a coffee shop, trying to mash out like, I need to post, I need to say something. Find out what the platform's already talking about and join the conversation and have your own thoughts and insights in your post that you've converted from a comment to a post. And I think the last one is accelerating your growth on LinkedIn. I would say the final one is to think about, I come from a place of sustainability. You may accelerate your growth for 1 week and then you can't maintain it. So the best advice I tell people is to create a personal hashtag, have a catalog of all of your content so it can live on. People can not only join the conversation, they could take a screenshot right now and say, these are the 3 things you can do to accelerate your growth, and make a post on LinkedIn and use hashtag FoxRocks, which would get you in front of over 900 people who are following my hashtag on LinkedIn. So the power of having a branded hashtag, it's extremely powerful for many, many, many more reasons than I can go to right now. So basically, if you're going to accelerate your growth, hold on to your acceleration and create a personal hashtag.
That's an excellent point. Actually, I love the fact that again, I mean, like just really good, really good like tips. I think. I mean, I like the fact that you talk about um, making sure, you kind of alluded to this earlier when you said you went back to your previous post and you said, hey, I didn't respond to the comments. And then
Mhm.
you said, well, what am I supposed to say? Thank you. Things like that. And again, these were thoughts, again, we struggled with this. I'm pretty sure we did, right?
Mhm.
When we first started,
Yep.
I'm what, 15, 16 years in. Sarah, you're in a bunch of years as well, right? I mean,
Yep.
and it's not just saying thank you is part of that. It can be part of that comment, but you want to make sure that you go deeper than that with the comments. Don't, like, if
Right.
you say thank you, then okay, well, what is Sarah supposed to do? Like if Judi posted something and I said, and she said thank you, and then am I gonna like, what am I supposed to say to that?
Right. Well, thank you used to work. Thank you used to work until the AI has advanced over a decade, of course, right? And now every platform wants to see a high quality comment. It's not just LinkedIn. Instagram rewards you for high quality content.
Mhm.
If you write a negative, if you frame a comment on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram has been testing it, but Twitter also prompts you, are you sure you want to post that? If it's a negative comment. So they appreciate quality, and all of the machine learning and all of the AI rewards it.
Well, I had a client the other day make a comment, and in the comment got over 500 likes and comments.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And I tell people, if a comment was going to get that type of visibility and it grew the visibility on their profile, because we're all curious, who made that comment? Who are they? What do they talk about? Especially if you optimize just that small part that you get of your title and your profile picture, make it intriguing or relatable. We can see your eyes. We feel like, oh, I want to click on her profile or his profile. But turn that comment into a post.
Yeah.
You don't have to start the post saying, I made this comment. Don't give us your train of thought for how you're turning it into a post. Own the comment. Just own how you opened it. You may just literally copy, paste the comment. And then at the bottom of the comment, tell people a little asterisk, however you want to do it. But you can credit back to where you got inspiration for that comment. I think that's fine. But it's just like every other social platform. We're constantly inspired by what other people put out in the world. I see all the time on TikTok, for example, oh, they copied me. You're not really copying if you create it and you credit back and say, I was inspired by this creator and I put my own spin on it. And I have a thought about XYZ in the newsfeed. I saw any hot topic you can think of, working from home. You have an opinion on it and you make a post on it. You make a comment and then you turn that comment into a post. It's powerful on LinkedIn.
Right.
Fantastic. This has
That's
been great. I guess I want to continue this conversation, but I also want to value our viewers' time. And I know, so Judi, what I want to make sure we do is I want to make sure we have you back again. I mean, it won't be 2 years.
It's always the sign of a good show when you get asked back live.
Exactly.
I definitely want to have you back. We could talk more about LinkedIn. In the meantime, Sarah, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I appreciate, Judi, all of your great nuggets, because I hadn't really thought about a personal hashtag. Certainly I use it for my clients, but why am I not using it for myself? It totally makes sense. You know?
Great. And we'll talk more about hashtags. I think, but like the other thing about hashtags to remember is that you can create your own. There's nothing that says you can't, use a hash. I mean, if, for example, if you're hijacking a brand, we won't go into this. Don't hijack a brand hashtag, but come up with your own. Look at, like, for example, Judi did Fox Rocks, hashtag Fox Rocks. Check that out. Check out all the great things she's doing.
And and I will give a quick instruction, because some people are like, how do you find hashtags? Literally type hash in the search bar on LinkedIn at the very top, put the pound sign and write hashtag Fox Rocks and just type it in. And all of the posts, it becomes a news feed that I've created. Yeah. To me, that's faster than all the other things you can do. Like if you want to find me on LinkedIn and find all the conversations happening, do that. So same thing with this show. The conversation can carry on. So there you go.
Fantastic. Well, I just have one last question for you. And that is, where can people get in touch with you?
Hashtag Fox Rocks. I'm just kidding. So JUDIFOX, I will give you the inside scoop direct to my calendar because I kind of hit it. But basically, I decided on my company page, if you're willing to go over to Judi Fox, the company page on LinkedIn, it says contact us and you get direct access to my calendar to book a spot to talk to me.
That's pretty cool. Awesome. So how did they get to that? Now all of a sudden,
let's see how many people book a call. So what were you saying?
So how do they get to that?
Just type in JUDIFOX in the search bar on LinkedIn and you'll find my personal page. And of course, you can find my company page.
Fantastic.
That is my address.
Fantastic. So go check that out. And Sarah, you're also, I think, growing on LinkedIn as well, right?
I am growing on LinkedIn, and across social media, you can find me at Sarah Monroe VT. And if you're connecting with me on LinkedIn, please drop a message and let me know that you saw me on Social Chatter.
Where's the VT from?
Vermont.
Yeah. My brain went to Virginia Tech because I went to Virginia Tech.
I know. We're
Do you ever get that?
Sometimes, or people think viral thread, that old thing too. So no, there's many Sarah Monroes in the world. And so that helps me stand out.
Nice.
We'll have to do a whole separate show on how we came up with usernames. Because I have an interesting one with my Twitter handle. It goes back quite a few years, things like that as well. So we'll have to talk about that. But yes. And I'm at Social Chefs for Social Chatter. You can check out all of these news topics that we talked about this week. Just a couple of quick points, by the way. We've got the blog post recap. I mentioned socialchefs.com/SC311. That's not live yet, but it'll go live over the weekend. That'll get you right to the blog post. There's also the Alexa Flash briefing that Sarah mentioned. We also are going to drop a tool of the week as well in the blog post. And then next week, we're going to be joined by Amanda Robinson. We're going to be talking about, I think we're going to be talking about probably Facebook ads, actually.
I think we may spend a lot of time on the Digital Gals Facebook ads. Yeah.
Definitely. So with that, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. It's been fantastic having you join us, Judi. We'll have to make sure that we, again, get you booked again. So awesome. Well, with that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We will see you all on a future episode. Bye, everyone.